Welcome to the Smart Aerialist podcast. I'm Ophelia, your host, an aerial coach, movement specialist, and lifelong performer. This podcast is for aerialists who want to train smarter, move better, and build strength and flexibility in a sustainable way. We'll dive into the science of aerial training, injury prevention, and long-term progress so you can keep growing without burnout. Whether you're just starting out or refining your craft, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone to this new episode of the Empowered Badass. I'm Ophelia, your favorite aerial coach with over 30 years of experience in circus industry and over 10 years of experience as a coach. Today's episode, we're going to dive into the science behind core strength and why it's important not just for your moves in aerial, but also just for your safety. We are not going to dive too deep because obviously I just want you to understand how to harness your core strength the best. But the science behind core strength is not just that. Obviously it's fundamental for aerialists. It also involves a lot of complex interplay with your various muscles that work in harmony. But the core is a bit like your powerhouse. It really helps provide stability and power. And when a lot of people say, oh, I don't have a lot of upper body strength, that's why I don't do aerial. Actually, your core is the most important part first. Strong core first, and then the rest can come along. It's not just about the six-pack. We don't care about the visible abs so much because the rectus abdominis only plays one small part in the whole network of core integration, but it comprises a lot of multiple layers with a lot of deeper muscles, and those muscles are equally, if not more important for overall stability and control. So let's have a look at this muscle, the layers of the core. First off, I said that already, your six-pack, your rectus abdominis, it's your muscle group that runs vertically along the front of the abdomen. It's crucial for flexing your lumbar spine. Obviously, it's like moving into a rounded back and obviously moving into your hollow hold and anything that requires a bit more activation of your core. Your obliques are located on the sides of your abdomen. Those you have internal, external obliques. This muscle assists with your rotation, your side bending motions. We do a lot of twist, even if it's not just a meat hook like we do in hoop. It's not just about those like hanging twist. It is also any kind of twisting motion that we might do. We do involve the obliques. They help a lot with your stabilization, and they work quite a lot with your transverse abdominis. Your TVA is your deepest abdominal muscle, which is wrapping around the spine for your stabilization, and it acts very much like a corset. TVA is not just at the back, it's at the front. The TVA is your deepest core muscle running from the front to the back and really bracing your spine. Your multifidus is actually a small muscle that are located along the spine, and it aids in stabilizing your spine, your vertebrae, also quite important. Your serratus anterior is obviously my favorite muscle. If you've not heard me talking about it a million times, then you will. The serratus anterior for me is very important because it's located on the chest and it helps wrap your shoulder blades forward. It aids a lot in your elevation. It's a very important muscle for your inversion. I discussed this in another episode where I discussed the anatomy of an invert. So please do go back and have a look at that if you want a bit more detail about serratus anterior, but it does help with your shoulder blade movement. It looks a bit like a wrapping corset that really wraps your shoulder blades around your ribcage and underneath your armpit. And lastly, another core muscle is your hip flexors. They actually are acting as a core muscle. They include psoas major and minor, your iliacus. These muscles, they connect obviously your spine, your pelvis, the femur, your rib cage, and they're critical for lifting your legs and maintaining your hip stability, obviously. So building the core in depth, we don't just want to target the surface muscle. Obviously, we want to actually figure out how to work those deeper muscles, right? And the layers. In order to ensure comprehensive stability, we do want to work on the depth of the muscle and engage into a variety of exercises in your conditioning just to make sure that you engage different parts of your core. How do we work the transverse abdominis? Well, it's quite easy. Anything from planks, hollow body, it's excellent for engaging the muscles, but you want to make sure as well that you can V-ups and so on try and really work the whole of your transverse abdominis. With your obliques, a lot of side movements, Russian twists, your side planks, your bicycle crunches can actually work quite well. And for your hip flexors, obviously your hanging leg raises, your mountain climbers are really good for strengthening your hip flexors. With the serratus anterior, making sure that you do some nice high plank. You can also do some very nice sort of scapular push-ups to help and activate and strengthen. If you want some of those exercises, do go on my YouTube channel. You'll find plenty of activation and conditioning exercises that do help with this. The reason why I want to discuss the core is not because we all know core is important and we more or less know what exercises to do. However, what's important with your core training is to bring variety. Your core needs variety because the way we move in aerial is dynamic. We rarely move in the same direction, which is we have planes sagittal, which is forward back. We have obviously lateral horizontal, and we also have transverse, which is a bit more what we do in a dynamic movement in aerial training. So it's quite important to keep variety, not just in your conditioning exercises, why we tend to bring a lot of movement as well in conditioning exercises, but it's also important to keep yourself into a bit of a cross-training situation and keep on doing things like Pilates, yoga, functional strength training, just to make sure that your core muscles stay well-rounded as well. Now, what's the time frame for building core strength? Generally, beginners can take about 4 to 8 weeks to really start seeing improvement in their core strength. When you stay consistent with your training, it's easy to see progress within 4 to 8 weeks. But when you want to do a bit more intermediate to advanced and you start progressing in your strength, it can feel a bit longer to see progress. Some core strength exercises or some core strength movements and poses that require a little bit more of strength can take up to a year. So be patient. Not everything takes just a few months at a time. Some of the work, I know, for example, my straight arm invert took me about a year and a half to come back to normal. So consistency is key here, and adopting a well-rounded approach to your core conditioning, I think it will really help you not just become a more stable, powerful and graceful, but just mixing up the routine can really help as well in challenging your core in different ways and find progress a little bit more rapidly. It's actually quite important to understand how your core muscle work because they do work to make you stable when you enter poses. They also bring the strength to get into those poses. So for example, the transverse abdominis, it acts like a corset. It hugs your midsection and it supports your spine. It's essential when you perform any exercise or transition and smoothly, right? When you want to transition smoothly, your transverse abdominis is generally helping into really bracing everything in effectively. The obliques, they will help with your twisted motion, and the rectus abdominis, it will obviously provide the strength for your pikes and your inversion. So obviously building those muscles through targeted training can really help, and it's generally key here. But understanding and strengthening your core is also more than just paving the way for more effective aerial conditioning just for any level. It does offer several benefits. First, it enhances your balance and your body control, which is quite crucial for executing complex aerial tricks and transition. A stable core generally allows you to maintain control while you're hanging on your apparatus. And obviously, this control is vital for reducing your risk of injuries when you perform more advanced moves. When we talk about strong core as well, it will improve your overall endurance as well. With better endurance, you will obviously be able to sustain longer practice, longer sessions. You will also maximize your aerial conditioning, exercise it at home, and it also will contribute for more efficient movement. And you will also, by becoming more efficient, by moving better, you will also get less tired and you will conserve a bit more energy. I don't know if you've noticed, but when you learn new things, you get tired faster because your body needs to adapt. And once your body is adapted and get the adequate strength to perform that movement a little bit more easily, you also sustain better energy. Things get hard at the beginning, and then it gets easier and then it gets harder because you learn to control and use your muscles a little bit better. But this efficiency means that you can spend more time refining your skills and less time recovering from fatigue. Ultimately, focusing on your core stability through cross-training and also additional conditioning routines outside your classes. It can enhance your physical abilities and it can really boost your confidence in your aerial practice. Building the core strengths, like I said, it's like your powerhouse because it's laying the groundwork for a skyscraper. It really prepares you for safe and confident exploration of more advanced movement. When your core is strong, it will significantly boost your neuromuscular control. I've done another episode about proprioception and neuromuscular control, but it will definitely feel that you have more control over what you do, especially when you have a situation where you learn something new and when you feel a little bit lost and you have to calm down and you can't figure out how to calm down, or you will feel a little bit stressed out and then you might do a drop and you might not be sure how to exit safely. When you work your core, you also work your neuromuscular control in effect. And I want you to think of it as having a finely tuned communication line between your brain and your muscle. It's a really strong body-mind connection. And this heightened control will mean that when you decide to try something new, you will also have a better automated answer response to anything that might happen. So it's primed to respond with agility, a bit more agility and a bit more precision. You have this automatic reaction if something doesn't go quite right. And especially when you are trying to tackle an intricate aerial sequence with the stability of a professional, your core strength, it really acts as your anchor. It allows you to push your boundaries in a safely manner. It's important to keep on strengthening that core because it also keeps you safe. In terms of exercises, again, I'm not going to go too much in depth because it's always better to have a look. I do recommend that you go and check out my videos for more conditioning kind of routines, but generally anything like plank side planks, your hollow body, your Russian twists, it's actually quite important to move into a lot of variations. Like I was saying, your body needs a balance routine and your body needs that sort of variety because we do move in a very dynamic and very different way each time we go on our aerial apparatus, and it's important that we do the same and don't repeat over and over the same thing. It's important to keep your foundations. Obviously, we're always going to do the same moves, but it's important to challenge in different ways as well. So when you build your routine as a beginner, obviously, is to gradually build your foundations. Keep your movement quite simple and keep your trainings quite short as well. You don't want to try and feel like you are excessively challenged. So when I created this program called the Aerialist Starter Toolkit, I've done a program that's about 6 weeks, not 8 weeks, not 6. And every first week of a new routine, which is every 2 weeks, on week 1, we break down the exercises separately. We might be doing a couple of superset, meaning back-to-back exercises. And in week 2, we try and superset the whole exercise together in a form of circuit. And then week 3, we take a new routine. Week 4, we do in a circuit. Week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8. Essentially, you got 4 routines in 8 weeks, but they are performed differently from week 1 to week 1, and then you implement progressive overload. And this has been designed for relatively beginner to intermediate kind of aerialists to really understand first how to build safely and sustainably that core strength, but also understand concepts of progressive overload and how to really see yourself progress throughout the program. So you can always go and check that out as well if that interests you, but always think about small increments at a time. And really think about just adding maybe an extra routine in your weekly training outside aerial classes, because that's really the key to progressing in your aerial classes. Generally as well, I would suggest maybe adding a 5-minute as many rounds as possible. You choose 2 or 3 exercises and then you add it after your gym routine, or you can also do that separately. But as an AMRAP is generally, sometimes if you're out of time but you do want to do a little bit extra, you set your timer for 5 minutes and then you choose 3 exercises, your plank, your hollow hold, and maybe V-ups or bridges, and you put your timer and then you say I'm going to do 10 reps of each. And in 5 minutes, you do the most rounds as possible of the 3 exercises. You can obviously do those exercises. I would say do 10, 10, 10, then maybe take a break, 10, 10, 10. But you take a break whenever you want. The aim is to just do as many rounds as possible is in that time frame. So I tend to add that after my workouts, which leads to saying again, cross training is actually quite important. I've done another episode on cross training where I just briefly approach why it's important. But again, you should try and do other things than aerial. I know it's not always motivating to do that, but it is actually quite important. I want you to understand the value, and if there is something that you used to do before aerial, maybe keep going with it. And I think it's important that first you keep also doing the other stuff that you enjoy. And maybe if you want to see it from a perspective of an aerialist, is understanding how can it make you better at aerial skills, right? Obviously, if you like cardio, it makes you better with endurance. And if you like CrossFit, that means you have given up your soul. No, I'm joking. No, but if you do CrossFit, you should have a natural kind of strength, and you also sort of stamina to do certain things. Working on how can you strategically integrate this kind of training externally into making you a better aerialist is just important. I don't want you to just integrate everything all at once, or even just start a million new things. But if there is something else that you do on the side, is think of it strategically as how can you integrate that training to make you a better aerialist. And also if you do want to try something new like a dance class that can make you better at your endurance and your stamina, then go for it. If you didn't do any yoga before and want to try yoga, I would recommend that. But generally, it's important to just learn to increment and explore what works out for you. And again, strategically think, how is this making me a better aerialist? I really hope that understanding the core aspect of training your abdominals and your core is actually quite important, not just for strength, but also for safety. And I hope that I've given you a bit more of details on how each muscle can provide you with a better function and how you can work it to harness better performance in your aerial training. Don't forget, as I said, there is the Aerialist Starter Toolkit that's in there. I've also done another program that's called Invert Power, which is a design gym-based program, as opposed to the Aerialist Starter Toolkit that is a conditioning program. The Invert Power is more of a program if you want to become stronger for your inverts, and that's a gym-based program. And in general, those two programs will be on another of my platform called the Aerial Performance Lab, which is a whole platform where I do put program like this one to not just help you get stronger, but also more flexible, and also a built-in rehab routine and rehab on-demand videos. This is a platform that created to try and help you train more sustainably as an aerialist outside your aerial classes, to obviously get a bit more confidence and also to find a bit more sustainability in your training. So you can go and check it out. But on and all as well, don't forget to comment and share this to your fellow aerial friends that you think could benefit of understanding a bit more about the science behind aerial training. And obviously, I want to thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye. I also want to remind you that there is a treasure trove of free content that you can access and I create for you. First of all, with every episode, you will see there are show notes where you can access the block that relate to this episode. The block dives a little bit deeper into details and also provide added references for you, some extra reading and some science papers that have inspired those episodes and those blogs. Second of all, you can also check out my YouTube channel where you will find a lot of workouts and flexibility, conditioning and strength exercises that are suited for aerialists in particular, but just not aerialists as well. And finally, don't forget to check out my app and the Aerialist Performance Lab.